We all ready? I'll call the meeting to order. It is 7:01. May we rise for the pledge, please? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to our May business meeting, which was delayed from last week. So it is May 20th, 2024. May we have a roll call, please, for attendance, Ms. Griffin?
Megan Doyle.
Here.
Scott Furmender.
He has stepped out, so he is here.
Okay. Tracy Irby.
Here.
Tom Kova.
Here.
Lauren Maller.
Ms. Mahler is stuck on the train, and she'll be here as soon as she can get here.
Una Petrosky.
Here.
Christina Preet. Mike Smith.
Here.
Cindy Wolf Boynton.
Here.
Susan Glennon.
Here.
9 members present.
And when Ms. Mahler gets here, please record her
Time.
time. Do we have anyone in the audience for public comment this evening? Let me just read the public comment statement. So, speakers may offer objective comments about school operations and programs. The board encourages speakers not to express personal complaints or defamatory comments about the Milford Board of Education personnel or any person associated with the Milford Public School System. Security issues and matters relating to negotiations and grievances will not be permitted. Consistent with the principles of the Federal Education Right to Privacy Act, discussion of students is prohibited absent parental waiver. Public comment does not allow for two-way conversation between speakers and the board. We welcome and appreciate your comments and opinions, and all will be taken into consideration. Please note our meetings are televised and live streamed on YouTube. We ask that you state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Yes?
Hello, my name's Mary Elizabeth Oak, better known as Emmy. I live at 30 Gorilla Place here in Milford. I just want to say how very disappointed I am at the Board of Elders not improving the economics for you. I know how hard you all worked on the budget, and I hope it doesn't go and bite the people in the arse that said no, which I may say was every single Republican that wouldn't budge, not even 1 cent, which says an awful lot when they were running on the fact that they were all for education. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to make public comment this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to Chair's report. So, let's see, this is our business meeting, which was rescheduled from last week. I had intended last week just to give a shout out to our fabulous teachers for Teacher Appreciation Week. I missed being able to do that with the rescheduling of the meeting, but we do recognize their efforts, which we all do truly appreciate. And I hope they had a great week. I saw lots of fun celebrations on Facebook. So kudos to our parent groups who always step up and make sure they are well recognized and pampered, I think. Also, congratulations to our senior award recipients. As a board, we normally attend the senior award ceremony, which is tonight, but with our reschedule of the meeting, that was the conflict was impossible to avoid. But I did send best wishes to the principals. Our own student liaisons will report for the last time and be recognized at our committee of the whole meeting next week, along with students that are being recognized for CABE Student Leadership Awards. So we'll have lots of students present for our meeting next week. And just a reminder, the end of the year is quickly approaching. I think there's, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks left, but who's counting? How many days left? 4 weeks? So for those board members able to attend the end of year ceremony, that will be next week, prior to our committee of the whole meeting. So it's on Tuesday because Monday is a holiday, and we'll have a light, just some light food for board members in between the two, because the ceremony starts at 5:30 and our board meeting starts at 7. You've also been provided with a list of the middle school moving up ceremonies and the high school graduation dates. So please be sure to let Ms. Griffin know which ones you'd like to attend. For the high school graduations, there's parking. We'll let you know there's parking available for board members. You sit on the field. with other dignitaries, and it's a lovely ceremony. It's a great end to the school year. So with that, I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Kutaya for superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon and members of the board. We are excited to share with you our instructional highlight this evening. I feel like this dialogue kind of sort of started a year ago, for those of you who are on the board, with lots of wonderings about artificial intelligence, and not to steal any thunder away from our team, but the presentation we thought we would give a year ago or even 6 months ago has drastically changed because of the incredibly fast-paced changing world of artificial intelligence. So with that tee up, we're excited to share with you what's happening in our classrooms right now, and Mr. Altieri and Mr. Giancola will be kicking things off for us.
Thank you, Dr. Kutaya, members of the board, good evening. Tonight, we have the opportunity to share with you a little bit about the work that we're doing around artificial intelligence in the Milford Public Schools. Specifically, the hope is for tonight that we will share with you an overview of what AI is, but also be able to talk to you about how it's influencing the work of our teachers and students in the classroom setting. And we're really excited tonight to have several members of our team here with us. So we have from our instructional division, Ms. Sarah Brewer and Ms. Amy Paris. Obviously, Mr. Giancola and myself, as well as Ms. Chelsea Green, who's an ELA teacher at Foreign High School, and Ms. Julia Goreb, who is our instructional teacher leader for instructional technology. So if you remember back several years ago when artificial intelligence became a thing, all of a sudden there were headlines all over the newspaper about the demise that education would face with the presence of AI. Whether it was loss of student agency in the classroom, it was opportunities for students to be able to cheat, or even the presence of teachers would be minimized because of AI. That seemed to be the headlines that were kind of all over the newspaper, all over the greater media outlets. However, we've started to see a shift. And really the shift now has showed us that the truth is that AI is really here to revolutionize the way that we look at education. It is revolutionizing every industry that's in existence. And in education, it's important for us to embrace this tool for teaching responsible use of AI. There's a lot of work that we will seek to do around responsible use and ethical use of AI. But as you'll see tonight from our presenters, there are many, many ways that AI is supporting and augmenting the work that we are doing in classrooms. And we're hoping that that's the opportunity that we'll be able to share with you this evening. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Giancola.
Thank you, Mr. Altieri. Board members, as you know, something new is always a little nerve-wracking. So I have a couple examples that I just wanted to show you of things that have happened to us throughout the years and why AI is going to change things, but maybe not for the worst things. So think about audio, listening to the radio. Back in the day, I remember my dad telling me that 7 o'clock at night he had to run home so he could listen to the Lone Ranger on his program. And then transistors came around, so they got smaller. You can carry them around with you. A boombox like I had back in the day, jamming down the street. And now you could put some earbuds in and listen to anything you want on the fly from your phone. Doesn't matter. You don't have to have it recorded. You don't have to carry CDs with you to change things out. It's right there. Same thing with TV. You had to run home at 7 o'clock at night, make sure that you were there to watch the evening news or whatever it was, and it was black and white on this little thing. And then it turned to color. Now you have basically a picture on the wall that's 65 inches, maybe even bigger, and it's like you're there. The sound is amazing, the picture is amazing. You can see almost every blade of grass if you're watching a football game. And then searching. Just searching in general. You think about that old card catalog that you had to go to and look up in the encyclopedia.
Then computers started to come along and they started to store the information and store data. You have one at home. Now, today you have the entire wealth of whatever you can think of right in the palm of your hand or in your pocket maybe. Earlier today we were sitting at the table and we were talking, and one of our colleagues said that she had some chickens, and we're like, well, how long does a chicken live for? Oh, 5 to 7 years. It was like instantaneous. Before that, what was I gonna do? Call a farmer and be like, how long does a chicken live? So it's just one of those things. So what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence really is the science of making computers do things that humans would that would require human intelligence. This could be anything from playing chess, driving a car, thinking about when you're driving down the street what's going on. The computer's doing that and making quick decisions on what to do next, just like you would. Also think about the AI voices when you make a phone call now. You pick up a phone and you call your service, and the service says, what are you looking for? Before you had to sit there and wait and go, press 1 for this, press 2 for that. And even think about GPS. GPS, you put in a location that you want to go to, and it may reroute you for traffic, but it's also trying not to create traffic. So it's not telling everybody to go the same way. The algorithm's saying, you go this way, maybe you take 95, maybe you take 15. And it's trying to alleviate traffic even before the traffic happens. So that's just some of the examples that it can do. And also, think about autocorrect, things like that. It's predicting that. And, back to the TVs, you open up Netflix now, and it's like, oh, you watch this? I think you're going to like this. I think you're going to like that. Well, there's not a person behind there doing that. That's a computer algorithm. That's basically what AI is. But enough about what AI is and stuff. I want you to see an example that our 2 teachers, Miss Chelsea Green, a 9th grade language arts teacher, and Miss Juliette Goria, a teacher leader for instructional technology, to give you a little bit of a practice and a little bit of an engagement with it. So you all have a Chromebook in front of you. You can now open them. And the password's written right on top so that you can get in. It should be on the screen that you need to be on. And I will hand this over.
I don't put them on my computer.
Is everybody ready for us to start?
I am.
Okay, wonderful. Great. Hi, Jess.
Good evening, everyone. Today we're excited to share how we're integrating artificial intelligence into ELA classrooms. And this can be applied to any classroom across our district. It doesn't have to be English. It can be applied to any subject at all. And that's what makes AI really exciting, because there's so many potential possibilities that we can use it for. We're going to start today by diving into an example for you all, so that way you can see exactly what type of thing we're doing in our classrooms. So in front of you, you should have a School AI chat room open, or if you did not, enter your name and hit join. And I want you to ask the chatbot any questions you may have about slant rhymes. Does anyone here know what a slant rhyme is?
Nope.
No.
Great. So you're going to be doing a small mini lesson on what slant rhymes are. And I hope you can figure it out really fast.
So we're going to give you about 2 minutes. Go ahead and start interacting with the chatbot. Right now it is meant to be a one-to-one tutor with you. And we're going to wait about just a couple minutes, and then we're going to do a quick debrief before we move on.
Ms. Irby, do you need help?
Thank you, Melissa. Nice formative assessment, Dr. Scott.
Just observing the class.
Everybody else okay?
So what am I supposed to do? I asked, what is a slate rhyme?
Did it tell you?
Yes.
Did it ask you any other questions?
He probably does now.
Why do you think
Oh,
poets
okay.
might use slant rhymes instead of perfect rhymes? We want you to interact.
Okay.
It's quizzing. This is Socratic inquiry. It's kind of the pedagogy that it's based on.
Okay.
How are we doing? Is
Oh,
everybody
Betsy, you
okay?
have your ball, the Socratic stuff.
Any questions?
Got the gas, well, that's.
Excellent. Hey there.
Something new.
So, let's start scanning. Go ahead and type something in. Like, what is this? You don't know what it is, right? It's a great question. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm rolling.
I'm so
I'm about trying to
hear
follow
that.
my thing.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't check in with you.
I'm fine.
Okay.
A few questions in all.
Awesome, great.
Are they being graded on this?
Oh, definitely. We're going to be giving out certificates afterwards. You may earn some continuing
They'll
education
have to read
credits.
their slant rhyme poem out loud,
Yes,
right?
yes. And upload it to something digitally because I'm the tech person, so we're really going to go all out here, people.
There's a lot of questions and never get.
Yes, there is.
I'm trying to throw it off, Megan.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to like think and get it right.
Yeah, I know, I didn't.
Is there a bug in my hair?
No.
We already had no bugs. Thank you.
And we're going to work another 30 seconds. Okay? We could engage with this probably a bit longer, but we don't want to. All right. Let's take a quick pause. Can someone now tell me in your own words what a slant rhyme is? What do you think a slant rhyme might be?
Sure, it's two words that don't exactly sound alike, but are similar in sound.
Excellent. Can anyone give me an example of a slant rhyme? And someone else maybe? Ms. Doyle?
Only because they told me they were right. Right, kite,
Right, kite, okay.
ton, fun, ton.
Fun, ton, okay. I love this. Thank you so much. And you said you weren't gonna say it, but it told you you were right. So you built that confidence up. All right, excellent. So how many people here would say that they have a little bit of a better understanding of slant rhymes now that they've done this really brief 2-minute activity? Okay, good. Why do you think, one more question, but why do you think someone would use a word that doesn't rhyme? Why do you think so? If someone was writing poetry, or let's say perhaps it was a hip hop lyricist, why would somebody use two words when there could be a rhyming word?
So it gives you more flexibility
More flexibility.
to have a more accurate meaning of what you're trying to say.
Exactly. So you can really hone in and get that message across, right? With the least amount of words. Okay, thank you. Now I want you to imagine yourselves as 9th grade students, 10th grade students. Perhaps you are shy and your teacher is asking you to get up and speak in front of the class or to have a dialogue and you really don't understand the concept, right? But you're asked to do this activity, or perhaps English is not your primary language and you have to participate in this group, but you're really having a hard time. You don't have the words to say. We deal with students every day that come to school with these kinds of learning challenges, right? We have neurodiverse students. We have students who really already come in knowing a lot and need challenges. We have students whose primary language is not English, and that is what we teach in. This tool remedies a lot of that. When we were working, I had the teacher side open of this so I could see what people were actually doing and where they were. I can look at Sarah and I can pull up her entire conversation. So if I wanted to, if Sarah, refused to participate perhaps in the activity or wasn't engaging, I might take a look and say, well, I wonder where Sarah got stuck here. I might go over and work with that student. So this tool not only allows students to have this kind of place to go and answer questions, but the teacher also has full control of it. We're gonna segue right now to a video that students, that we recorded of some of our students. Would you mind, do you have the clicker? This is what our students had to say about using the one-to-one tutors. I'm gonna actually, one more time, okay, perfect.
Sure, it's great. I can talk one-on-one with the robot, just type in what I need to know, and they can tell me directly what I need. Usually the teacher's busy with other students, but with this I can just type in, how do I find so-and-so? And it will tell
After it gave me the historical context, it was like, how did this help deepen your understanding? And it was like, how did this help make you think more? And after that, like, it would give you more information. It would keep going and keep asking me questions to make you think
because
more.
like if you don't know what a word is, or even like a paragraph or a sentence, you could write like a fifth grader, so like so it simplifies it for you, so you can understand
I
it.
use AI a lot for like proofreading. Like when I have an essay, I'll just like put like the final essay through it, and if I have like a spelling error or something, it'll be good. Or if I'm writing a claim, I'll say, is this claim good? And it'll give you like suggestions on how to prove it.
I'm really proud of them. They did such a good job. So AI is frequently used in my English classes as a valuable supplement, reinforcing skills taught through the direct instruction that I'm giving. It provides targeted but also personalized support for all students, whether they've mastered the skill or if they're still struggling. School AI aids in differentiation, offering timely feedback tailored to individual needs of my students. The tool significantly enhances my students' classroom experience by allowing me to dedicate more time to individual students while School AI fields questions for others. For some students, School AI serves as a safe zone for seeking help, and additionally, School AI can offer enrichment activities for advanced students, keeping them engaged and challenged. This integration supports high-quality instruction and also ensures every student receives the attention and resources they need to succeed. So let's explore what AI integration looks like in the classroom. In a lesson focused on crafting thesis statements, I created a School AI chatbot for students to use after our traditional lesson. This chatbot wasn't a required assignment, it served as a support system, allowing students to be able to test and also receive immediate feedback on their thesis statements. Additionally, the chatbot answered any questions students had if they're struggling with the concept. Right now, you'll be receiving a handout that is from one of my students that was struggling with understanding how to create a thesis statement and also even thinking about what a prompt is and where and how they start. So really getting those starting steps. So I invite you to take a look at that and take a quick gander at it. And I want you to notice how the student interacted and how over time he became more and more confident and was able to complete the assignment, but also really truly understand what a thesis statement is compared to how he was in the beginning where he wasn't really sure what the prompt was. So this is just one example. And through intentional planning and strategic prompts, AI acts as a catalyst for deeper understanding. It instills confidence in every student to engage actively with the material that's being presented in class. It's important to emphasize that the teacher still plays an active role in the classroom community. We are still able to support the needs of every single student, but also with an additional kind of like sidekick that's coming along the way. So with AI support, students gain the autonomy to seek answers independently, reducing but not eliminating the reliance on the teacher.
All right. So there is copious research out there about AI and education. But at this point, most of it is truly theoretical. We don't have quantitative data to look at how it specifically impacted third grade reading scores. It doesn't exist yet. And the reason that it doesn't exist, and the reason that policy by and large does not exist, is because not enough people are trying it out. Not enough people are really dipping their toe in. But here we feel like we are really kind of tech leaders. And I think here in Milford we are sort of ahead of the curve in integrating this with our students. There's a tangible impact that is absolutely evident. Chelsea and I co-planned and co-taught a big part of this memoir unit together, and we saw some real qualitative evidence of student growth. I think the videos showcase that a little bit, but we did want to point out that there is a huge impact on student learning. Students appreciate having that sidekick. They appreciate being able to make sure that they are right before they take a risk in front of their peers, which is totally developmentally normal. And I think even as an adult, it's sometimes nice to just check before you interact, right? So the students can ask questions and receive immediate feedback in that way. Oops, wrong way. There's also peer conversations. So when we're using this, we're using it in small snippets of time so that students can deeply engage in it. But that's not the end of the learning. The purpose of it is to get kids talking to each other, to have that deeper understanding, then make that thinking visible so that other classmates can see it, and we can have whole group discussions and really kind of delve deeper into, what is it that we're studying, and we see that happening. Oh, wrong way again. I'm really good at this. Finally, I mentioned before, this program automatically does something called code swapping. So we see code swapping happen a lot with multilingual people. They're speaking in English 1 second, but perhaps they don't have the word for it, and they'll swap into their native tongue. The AI chatbot follows the language. So we had a student who's a native German speaker, and we provided this support for her, and then we looked afterwards to see how did it interact with this kid. And it followed her language lead. And the student was able to go back and forth, but when she didn't have a word for it, she would go into German and then get that word. And then she had this much deeper understanding of it. And it was amazing because while we do have, of course, probably our largest multilingual population is Spanish, and a lot of people are bilingual in that. We have so many more languages coming into the state. Right now we have 95 languages in the state of Connecticut. 95, I can only list like 10. You know what I mean? So this is great that we have this resource for our students. And students are also provided with appropriate challenges. So when we were coming up with this slant rhyme activity, we were trying to think of something that was a bit obscure. But if my mom or dad or guardian, whomever, was an editor, a poet, or a lyricist, they would 100% know what a slant rhyme was. And we have kids who may come from parents who are doing that. And because artificial intelligence is adaptive, it would know to provide a challenge for that student. And finally, the last kind of component before we turn this back over to Steve is to highlight the second part of the AI tools. So far, we've really been focusing on the student-facing component, but there is a huge teacher-facing component. And this is where we tie in our intentional planning and our responsiveness to students. Some of the things that it offers here is a text leveler. So a text leveler would level a text so that a student would be able to access it. So for instance, if we have a student with perhaps a learning disability who cannot access high academic text, we would be able to modify that for that student so they still had content-rich material at their just right level. It helps us generate some new texts like decodables and things that support the science of reading. It helps us write lessons. The prompts in these AI tools that are built for school are already pre-built with things that we use regularly, like Harvard thinking routines. So I can use that as a thought partner to say I want to incorporate this into this lesson, and then the AI can give me ideas on how to do that. It can help with, it can create some lists for assignments. So if you have like a huge unit coming up, it can break down the assignment into chunks or segments for students so that they have checklists that they can utilize. It helps with goals and behavior intervention plans for students who may need a little bit extra support. It can create vocabulary lists. It also provides translations and modified instructions. And this is my favorite part, it's not really, but it has a joke generator. So I had it write one for you all today. And the joke is, why did the computer get cold during the AI training? Because it left its windows open. Yeah, pretty good, right? I never underestimate the power of laughter. But really, laughter aside, these tools are transformative. Teachers are never going to go away. We learned that during COVID. Schools are social institutions as much as they are academic institutions. You cannot make the same kind of eye contact online as you can with your teacher. You don't get the assurance, you don't get the smile, you don't get the good morning, you don't get the fist pump when you've done a good job. So teachers are not going anywhere. This is just going to help us individualize our learning and instruction for every single student so that we are challenging and providing scaffolds.
So Juliet had a lot of great points there, and as we've always done when Dr. Katai and I think about any new initiative, thing that we're working to bring into the district, we always think about potential. And for a moment, I want you to think about the potential that AI still has to offer to our classrooms. And on this particular slide, I'm not going to go through them all, but there are several things that AI is going to lend for us to be able to do with students. And I want to call out a few of those. For years and years and years, districts would have to purchase accessibility tools, whether it was text-to-speech or real-time captioning for students. Those resources and supports are now embedded within many of these programs to make learning accessible for all students. Feedback. There's actually algorithms that are developed through artificial intelligence that allow for the programs to provide some of that real-time feedback, evaluate responses, and guide students in their learning process. And lastly, this is one that I think we're really excited about, we're seeing more and more, is the opportunity for virtual classrooms. We're starting to break down the walls of the traditional school and think about ways that students can connect with students from other schools, other countries, and really embrace that collaborative type culture. So as we kind of wrap up this evening, I want to connect it back to our core principles. What really embeds and drives the work that we do. And that artificial intelligence and the way that we're looking to have it immerse the work in our classrooms is really aligned to our core principles. So if we make the connections, obviously, to our HQI model, our high quality instruction model, within that you see language for self-assessment. There's adjustment and responsivity to feedback. All of those things are important components of the work that we're doing to support high quality instruction within our classrooms. As we talk about vision of the learner, again, I've given you those, and there's lots of connections there. If you look at scholarship, it's using our technology and digital tools to not only explore, but to communicate. Personal development, expression, and being able to clearly articulate ideas and reasoning. And lastly, the creativity and innovation. We're always pushing on students the ability to be able to design innovative solutions to complex problems. And then obviously our relationships framework, the one that really stood out to me is that final box that talks about expanding possibilities, connecting our students with the people and places that they want to connect with. And you'll notice that there's one of our 4 core principles that's not pictured on this particular slide, and that's our equity framework. And that's because I feel like our equity framework overlies this entire concept. And if you think back to the presentation from the fall, we presented to you kind of the 6 threads of our equity framework. And Yes, I'm a geek, I've memorized the colors. The green one was our curriculum and instruction thread. And within that, there's one statement that stood out to me that I feel like really embraces this. And that is, we create the conditions for every learner to have access to relevant learning opportunities that meet their unique potential. And we feel like, as you've heard tonight from Juliet, Lewis, and Chelsea share with you, AI gives us that particular opportunity to meet the needs of all of our learners. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and we're happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, so thank you. Definitely exciting, and want to say first off that I'm thoroughly in the camp of believing there's a lot more opportunity for AI than risk of utilizing AI. That said, I'll ask a question and explain what the question is and then love your answer. So the question I have is, how are we preparing and making sure our students have the background knowledge and the critical thinking to recognize and identify when there are hallucinations in the AI? And the hallucinations is the term I heard first from David Ferrucci, which is one of the scientists who developed the data scientists at IBM who developed Watson. And when you're talking about the large language models, and his description of AI was fascinating and simple in that it's a really powerful program that uses all the information in the world to predict what the most probable answer is and what the most probable word in the sequence is. And I was reminded of that going through this exercise when I asked what are slant rhymes, and it said, slant rhymes are words that almost rhyme but have a slight variation in the sound, like cat and hat. Mm-hmm. And I go, what are not slant rhymes? Because those sound exactly the same in my mind. And so their perfect rhymes are words that end in the sound like cat or hat. And so two different prompts which result in the same cat or hat. And so it was that's kind of wanting to make sure that really excited about all the opportunities, but AI still can have hallucinations, and making sure our students are equipped with the tools to ask further questions.
So I think that's actually a great question. And we do know that there are hallucinations. But I think if we really think about like what is a language learning model, right? These massive things that are pulling from the internet, we would apply the same digital skills that we're teaching kids to use the internet, right? Just because AI said it doesn't mean it's true. Just because it's in the newspaper doesn't mean it's true. And I think at that point we would, of course, hope that the student would be like, something's not right here, this happens. But we would also hope that the student would then take on some agency and do some fact checking or do a little bit more research. I think that's a really powerful thing. Another thing that a teacher had said to me was, wow, he was a science teacher, he's like, I'm really noticing like through this how students are struggling to like even format questions. And I think that it's helpful in that way. One of the positive things is that we have this tool that at least lets us know, and we actually can provide feedback directly back to the company when we see a thread that doesn't make sense to us. So that's another thing we can think about. But Chelsea has been really great, and I think all of our library media specialists really, we have digital citizenship as a unit in kindergarten, throughout. And one of the things that we teach kids is to be critical thinkers. So I'm hoping that that answers your question. And that's kind of where we are right now. One last thing, because I'll go on forever. This is the dumbest AI will ever be right now. It's smarter. Like, you know what I mean? And we're going to continue growing like this. So I think we're still almost in a beta format, but that it's going to continue to get better and better and better. And we also have to be mindful that when we're teaching AI use is that our students know that everything that they're putting into that computer is permanent, and the things that we put in are what's going to come out of AI. So it's more important now than ever to teach our kids to be good digital citizens.
Can I do it?
Sure.
Sorry. Thank you.
That's okay.
Yeah, and so thank you. I appreciate hearing that and understanding that. And then the other question, I assume it's somewhere in the curriculum, is understanding that, in addition to understanding that all the inputs are permanent, that there are severe negative consequences for misuse of it, especially in kind of the AI generated intimate images and all those kind of things that
Absolutely.
are out there in the world.
And again, that's something that is part of our digital citizenship. We do copyright, all of that stuff. And I know my supervisor who's sitting over here, Amy Paris, she is really very informed on that. And we're lucky that Sarah Harris's dad is even a copyright lawyer. So we are always checking to make sure we are really on top of that kind of stuff. And as a library media specialist, which is also my background, I've been teaching this kind of stuff my whole career, and it's so important that we are making students aware that anything online, we don't take credit for it. If it's not ours, we don't take credit for it. We don't modify it, we don't upload it to AI and then say it was our idea. So I think all of that is really, really important stuff, and that's embedded in our curriculum.
Cool, and also making sure, I assume it's there, but I just feel like since we're talking about it, it's on the subject, right? That while it might not be theirs, if you utilize AI for an inappropriate use, you can still be held responsible criminally in the copyright sense, but also in the disciplinary, especially if you involve images of another student or something like that.
And we're working
Yes,
on
and
writing
our,
policy.
and our AUP policy already covers that type of thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Those are really good concerns that I think everyone has. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Petrosky.
So I have a few questions, if you don't mind.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to know is, what are the steps that we are taking to ensure that there's no bias in the material that we're using with AI?
I think it's the same thing that Juliet hinted to a little while ago, is that any type of research, we have students looking at different perspectives, consulting different sources, that the use of the AI tool is only one component, and that we want students to be able to fact check with other resources as well to understand what information they are getting from those digital tools. So I think it's treating it like any other type of research component.
Okay, so we're not doing anything like having some closed system that says, this is the kind of data that's been vetted already that
No.
you can use. Okay.
In fact, we have like a large variety of databases. And I don't actually know of any teachers right now that are using this for like research purposes in that way. We steer students to like, especially as we're moving up and getting them ready for a career in college, we want them to use industry standard databases. So what we've been using this for is much more just kind of like the small snippet that you saw today. And we are also using school vetted, data privacy compliant resources. So we're not putting kids on ChatGPT, which is completely, with this, I'm sure that none of you tried this, but we did. We've abused it. We've done everything that we could to get it to say something not appropriate for a student. We've asked it to give us bad information. And for the most part, besides Hat and Cat, it's been pretty great about just keeping us online and getting students back on track. And we've seen it. Chelsea and I have looked back and we've seen students be like, be quiet, I'm done with you. And you're like, well, just one more thing, and AI never loses its patience. So it's great in that regard.
Okay. So the next thing I kind of wanted to put out there was, how much focus are we putting on how to prompt? I mean, prompting jobs that didn't exist last year, there's no such thing, are now paying $90,000 a year. So is that something that we focus on? How do we prompt intelligently, well, et cetera, to get what we want?
So when we started using School AI, the first thing that was very glaring was that they had no idea how to prompt. And they created these very short conversations that didn't get much out of them. The student didn't get much out of them. And so it's like, okay, back to the drawing board. So basically what ended up happening was we created a list of prompts. It became a mini lesson for students. And so after having prompts like simplify or elaborate or continue talking like a fifth grader to me, they were able to start to understand what the AI was saying, and they were able to really contribute to this really awesome conversation that led to more knowledge for them, but also confidence about what they were talking about with peers.
Another thing as well is that with these ones that are created for schools, they already have like a pre-prompt in them. They're fed extra information. So if I ran through ChatGPT, create a lesson for me including Harvard thinking routines, it would have a lesson and then say include Harvard thinking routines. But if I run it through this, it'll actually say, do a think, pair, share. Or it'll actually give me the various thinking routines and the various options. So these are already a little bit pre-prompted. Chelsea and I have both done a little bit of PL. We've been kind of dipping our toe in with some PL. We have some teachers using it, but I think like we need to teach our teachers how to use this. You know, this is something that Chelsea and I just happen to be like, you know, birds of a feather who are just really techie and really nerdy and enjoy working together, right? But I think we need to empower our teachers to be able to use this resource, you know, to its maximum capacity through professional learning.
I'm so glad you said that, because that was my next question. Have we had any professional learning on this for our teachers yet?
Yeah, Julia has hosted several. I've done a few during the full day PD days where I've hosted some different AI tool workshops so that teachers can play around them. Because I am a firm believer that teachers will not get on board with using AI in any aspect without knowing how to. And all the time, teachers asking, well, how do you detect AI in work? I'm like, well, you have to use AI so you know what type of thing you're looking for. Like, my brain is the best AI detector that you can find. You can't really rely on the ones online. So I think teachers need it not just so they can use it beneficially in the classroom, but also so that they see when students are not being as faithful as they say in their papers.
Last question, I promise. When you're teaching the use of AI and prompting, are you doing things like, hey, I want you to give me a one-page paper on X and then try and do it through AI so you can understand what AI is bringing you versus what you're able to research yourself? So there's a difference that they can kind of understand how better to prompt? Is that part of the...
So yes, we have done many lessons like that. There's so many different applications to AI that, you know, that's just one aspect of, but that is one of the earlier lessons, talking about, like, okay, so this is what this is gonna look like if I'm throwing it in, and you would get an awful grade on this because it lacks, you know, evidence and all these different things that you really need. And so this is also, it builds their evaluating skills and critical thinking, because then they have to think, well, what do I need? And, you know, how can I be successful using this as a tool, but not as my brain?
Thank you.
Questions down here, Ms. Wolf-Boynton?
So this example that you gave us, right, this is amazing to me, and I'll tell you why. So I teach college freshman English, academic, writing, how to write a thesis statement, topic, sentence structure. And when you have 20-odd kids in your room, ideally, you would like to be able to ask these exact questions of every student, right? So what's your main idea? Well, tell me one reason why that matters. Okay, tell me another reason why that matters, right? And you work your way just like this to get to the point that you have a thesis statement. You know, no teacher has the time to sit down and go through 20 students one at a time to ask those questions. So it is fascinating and just wonderfully amazing how this worked to guide the student through. I'm curious though, where does the instructor come in to this process? So grammar, spelling errors aside, right? When I look at this, it seems like it's kind of a big jump from the information that was inputted to this final draft of a thesis. And I would imagine, playing devil's advocate, that a program like this is not just to give our teachers a break so they can sit down and eat an apple while students educate themselves, right? That this is part of an interactive process. So I'm hoping you might be able to talk just a little bit about that.
I'd actually like to give you a little more background on this student as well. This student struggles a lot in English, not his strong suit, and is very shy and does not like to speak often. So in class, he probably wouldn't have even asked me questions if I didn't come over and prompted him to do so. And even then, I might get, yeah, I'm okay. And that would be it. And so when I saw this conversation, I also was extremely shocked, because this was one of actually the first times that I used this program. And it left me a believer, because this student was so engaged. And is there a copy of that? There is a part where you can see the shift. It's on the back page. It's kind of like after the I don't know. I went over to him and I started talking to him about what type of conversation he had so far with the AI program. And so we kind of formulated some ideas together, and that's why you see that there's a little bit of a jump there. So that's where the teacher comes in, where you have these original questions like, what is a prompt? Like those things that I wouldn't necessarily think automatically, oh, I should ask him if he knows what a prompt is, because I assumed that he knew that at that point. And so this was amazing to answer some of those questions that I didn't think of like asking originally. And so by looking through this conversation, then we were able to say, all right, so this is where we're starting here, now that you have this background information.
But I can tell you, during the class period, while the kids are answering questions, there's also some kind of, normally we will do some kind of like sharing of ideas. So the teacher is walking around while students, we have devices that flip so we can hold them as tablets, so we can be monitoring here and then walking around and monitoring our students. So she is able in real time to see what every single kid is doing, and then to come around and pinpoint students who maybe need a challenge, or who maybe she's seeing like an IDK kind of answer, like, oh boy, let's go talk to that friend. Or maybe she comes over and sees some of the notes that kids are writing, because there's always a making thinking visible component to the lesson after we do a deep engagement thinking activity. So there is no one sitting at their seat, you know, and while it might look like that, that conversation was probably a snippet of less than 5 minutes. And then the rest of the class was all engagement and movement and student dialogue, which is what we want to see. So it's really kind of small things. When Chelsea and I did a co-taught, it was students were reading. We had them look at one idea. They talked about the idea, and then they applied it to their own writing of their own memoir. This is a memoir unit. So it really was such a small piece of the lesson, but it was so impactful.
I imagine, and I'm just making an assumption here, that if you are walking around with those kinds of tablets, you know, Tom has totally got it going on, right? He got it in a heartbeat while I'm struggling with it. If you see that, there would be opportunities for peer learning, right, Tom? You know, maybe you can talk to Cindy about how you got your ideas.
Yep.
This is fabulous. This is fabulous.
And the program actually will tell you, I don't know if you went over it and you can see it, it will actually tell you if the students are starting to struggle. So on the side here, it'll actually kind of pinpoint, you know, like who's doing well and who is not doing well here. And it's a really helpful tool because you can automatically like, oh, gotta go run over there right now.
And it's in real time. So it updates as students are typing.
So it's assessing and telling you who might be struggling.
Or who's bored and who needs a challenge. Seems equally as important.
And do these programs, I'm not going to use the right vocabulary here, I'm sorry, but do they come pre-programmed to ask these specific questions, or are you kind of
It's a combination
guiding
of both.
it?
So we were so lucky, we actually met with the creator, like the guy that owns this, and created it from, you know, he's amazing. But he was saying that that it is, some of it is the prompting that we put in there, but some of it is what's built in, and it's based on like a Socratic like pedagogy. So it's all about like inquiry and asking questions. So the chatbot already has that component built into it, and then the teacher can really feed what it wants the students to be focusing on. So in the same token, like you had just said, like, well, what if I'm really struggling and the person sitting next to me is doing so well? Not every kid has to be on the same topic. Like when we're looking at like, you know, student learning progressions, if we see that we have one student that's really struggling with a certain component, we can create chatbots and differentiate that way and give, you know, 4 students that are struggling with one kind of standard or something, a different chatbot. So just because someone's doing well in one piece doesn't mean they're going to do great in something else, and we can provide students different QR codes to get into, or different links to get into different chatbots as well. So you're not always getting a one-size-fits-all. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good.
So is every student going to have the opportunity to experience this, or is it only if you hit the right teacher?
Well, so
More to come on that.
More to come. Okay, fair enough.
We have to understand where AI fits in our curriculum, instructional model for high-quality instruction, and assessments. So we need to make meaning of that first, so that we can support our teachers to weave it into those three components.
Exciting,
It could be scary for some, though.
I'm sure.
So not everyone is going to run to this with open arms.
I can relate to that. Thank you.
Ms. Irby?
Thank you. So I think the power of AI is amazing and wonderful. And when I use it personally, it's like so much fun in trying to come up with the right questions to get what you want out of there. And I think that's important for the students to have to sit and struggle and figure out the right words to get what they want out of the system. I think it's fun, and I hope that they get that. And speaking to so many different students regularly, if I teach it one way, their friend will teach it another way, and then they have an AI sidekick or someone else to possibly help them a third way, and maybe the only way they might actually get it. I think that opportunity is great for them. And the one thing I didn't hear you mention really was when I use it like an assistant. So, you plan your day, you can do all those kind of things in here. Are we using it for students that might need help keeping their whole day on track, like their study schedules,
So oftentimes I do meet as a kind of a first step. I'm not like an assistive technologist, but I do have like a firm understanding. And sometimes I'll go in when teachers have a question, how can I support this student? And oftentimes that is how we're using it. One of the things that I had mentioned a little bit earlier, very briefly, was that this can even condense like big projects for kids. So if a student really has a hard time with executive functioning, yes, this would be the tool for that student, It's amazing like that. You can pop in like a whole activity or assignment, and it can say like, this is your step one. And so we can apply that to entire days for kids as well, get them started on the right foot as well in the morning. So there's so many really different applications that we haven't even started exploring yet.
And this particular company, School AI, is this like the one we're sticking with? Because
I don't think we're married to anything at this point. We are looking at School AI because it was one of the first ones to sign the Connecticut Data Privacy Compliance Agreement, meaning that our students are safe using this. It is against state law to ask any student to use a site that is not data privacy compliant, and that goes along with COPA and FERPA laws and all that really important stuff. So we would never put our students on ChatGPT because it's not privacy compliant. If students are using that, I think it's important for us to be teaching responsible usage in general, but that's not a teaching tool for us. And like I said, I think things are going to continue to come out, and it's our responsibility to stay, at the forefront of that research and make the best decisions for our district. And it's not going to be made single-handedly.
Thank you.
Ms. Glenn, I just want to extend a thought based on the last two questions. For at least 5 of you, it was recommended last year that we go slow with AI from the previous board. Only a year ago, it was don't go fast, Dr. Kutaya, go slow, we're not sure where this is going. So yes, we want many more people to use it. Yes, we'd like to integrate it, particularly with our students with special needs. So it's all coming, but we were going slow. And we anticipate that we're just not going to be able to keep up with the technology. It's going to go faster than we can. So we need to be very intentional about embedding it in the pillars of curriculum, instruction, and assessment so that we're grounded. So I think we'll develop with a pace that we're comfortable with change. We've talked a lot about progress and change in educational systems. So we have a little bit of work to do. So I don't want anyone to feel frustrated like we're not doing things yet, because our intention was to go slowly.
Ms. Preet?
So the step after this, when they become more confident writers, for this example, in their upper grades and then when they get to college, so there's only so many unique thoughts, right, that become their own. How does it integrate with a plagiarism or like colleges now put papers through to see if they're just either bought or copied or, so how do you balance that? The kid has, these are my unique thoughts, this is my unique sentence, my unique everything coming from my brain versus it's all already out there. So
I think
that's gotta be a balance.
Yes, and I think that's a really great point, right? Is that we're not having unique thoughts. But I think it's a shift in pedagogy and practice. So instead of saying to students, next week you have a 5-paragraph essay due, and you will submit, and I'm gonna look at the rough draft. We don't want to do that anymore. We want to be really intentional, I think, and say and have our students writing in iterations and pieces and reviewing them in class and peer editing and having those conversations. And that's really what Chelsea has created in this unit. And when you have students doing the work all along, like you're just gonna take your own copy and paste from those chatbots. You're not gonna take someone else's work. And I'll tell you, we didn't put it on the video. Well, because you asked, I'll tell you. One of the last student that was up there, I said to her, did you ever use it to cheat? I said, turn the video off. Did you ever use it to cheat? And she said, I did one time. And she goes, but it was such a pain because it didn't sound like me at all. And it took me so much work to make it sound like me. She was like, when I looked back at it, I could have just taken all the stuff that we had done and put it together, and that would have been the essay. So she said she never did it again after that because it was too much work. But I think that's really sort of like a shift, right? Is let's take this and let's do it together in class. And I also do want to point out that we do have Securely that monitors students. So if we're doing this in the classroom and teachers are running the software that we've provided for them to maintain a safe digital atmosphere in their classroom, we can see what every single student is doing. We can be monitoring progress. We can be doing that by making thinking visible. I mean, there's a million different ways that we can sort of like cheat-proof our writing. Like the advent of the calendar. You got to show your steps down. Same thing with the writing process.
And I'd like to emphasize the biggest change in my classroom since the introduction of AI has really been emphasizing the journey opposed to the destination. And arguably, I think my students are learning a lot more from it.
Anything else? Ms. Doyle?
I have short questions. I'm sorry if I missed this. What grades what grade is this? Ninth. Okay.
It's a English 1 level 2 class.
Okay. And then, is this language that's here speaking or writing in a 9th grade level?
So
The
what the
prompt.
AI is, so yes. And actually, when you prompt the AI chatbot, you should say in your prompt that this is for this level of student with this approximate XI level, and that all goes into it. That way, we know for a fact that it is going to talk in a language that they can understand. But if for some reason it comes out with something that they don't understand, we're teaching them how to prompt and say something like simplify, or talk to me like a 5th grader, which is their favorite one, which you saw in the video. They love that one, and they're like, oh, this is great, I understand exactly what it's saying.
Okay, so you're going in beforehand, putting in the prompt. That's why I was able to pull the prompt directly
Yeah,
into it.
it's a lot, I put a lot of time into prompting. Teachers don't have to, I do, but yes, you can put so much into it to really personalize it to a classroom.
You might not have the answer to this question. What's the general cost of a program like this that's being put forward? Because there's obviously a cost, whether it's licensing agreements or associated with it. And, as we go into this whole idea of expansion, what does it cost? And is this mainly the program that you're using currently because it's one of the only that complies?
So Chelsea is amazing over there, that she figured out that if she helps this company, she's getting the full thing for herself.
So I'm certified for
free.
school,
She's a certified person. We looked into it a little bit. I think it was around $20,000 for the district. So
That's the chatbot though. The teacher tools are forever free.
Yeah.
So when we talk about like generating decodables to support the science of reading or regenerating questions to meet a student's need who has a nonverbal learning disability, like that, those components are free. The paid component is the one-to-one tutor.
Okay, because they're using your data to build the rest of the system.
Well,
Well,
that's the reason why we're picking a
use
company
it.
like this, because they're not.
Because they're not
Okay.
using our data. They only use their
and
data
that-
for internal stuff.
That's the reason why we have, that's part of the Student Data Privacy
I mean,
Act, is
this,
that
the
they don't
one-on-one,
use
they're not using it because it's protected under FERPA and all of these, but what you put in as a teacher, is that not protected because it is technically?
No, I think the whole thing is just protected. Like everything that stays in there is like a closed network box.
And
Yeah.
part of my training, they did talk about that, and it was, our stuff was protected as well.
Okay, so your information is being put into kind of, you're teaching it within there, and it's learning from you and how you kind of create a process, and your tone, your voice, your teaching style as well?
Yeah, I guess for the most part. So anything I build here, this is the tools page. Anything that I do in here will remain in mine.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Petrowski?
I'm sorry, I know I promised I had one, I finished, but I'd heard assessment a couple of different times, and it seems to me that this would help with some of that, maybe in addition to Milford Measures, but it also looks like it's real-time assessment as you go along. And I was
Well,
just.
we, as teachers, are trying to give real-time assessment all the time. And this is another tool to do that, I think, but really, while we're teaching, we have been focusing so much on formative assessment where we are looking, and that's kind of why I called out Dr. Kutai when she did that, because that's what she did when she noticed that we had one person that wasn't on. This is what we're looking to do. That is good teaching that we want to do all the time. So this is just another tool that sort of supports that. But we have lots of tools to do formative assessments.
So I was just wondering if this specific tool also generated some sort of reporting so you could kind of see a progression?
I don't know that it does.
In terms of progression, I don't think so. For one class period, yes. For a specific student, not yet. They said that they're trying to have things in the works, but that's a little more complicated because they'd have to then work with like student logins and whatnot. So they're not at that point yet, but I'm sure that's probably something that's going to happen in the future.
Okay, and then Mr. Giancola, security. I'm just gonna put the word out there.
So, I mean, that's always a concern, and that's why we look for the software that is privacy compliant, and, like we said, we use Securely, and we use our, firewall filters and all that stuff to keep kids on track and where they're supposed to be.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to the next.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Thank you, Juliet. Yes, let's go on to the next item. Sorry, let me just switch back. So we are going to take some time to talk about the recommended adjustments to the proposed 24-25 budget. And I'll bring your attention to the green and white chart that is in your packet. I believe it's enumerated page 6. We're going to give Mr. Brennan's going to give a brief overview of these line items, and then we're happy to take questions. We are hoping that the board will take some action this evening so that we can move forward with closing out this fiscal year and setting up the next year over the course of the next few weeks. Mr. Brennan?
Thank you, Dr. Todd, Ms. Glenn, members of the board. So as the Board of Ed is aware, on March 20th, 2024, the Board of Finance recommended a proposed reduction of $1,335,429, resulting in a recommended education operations budget of $109,950,341. On May 13th, 2024, the Board of Aldermen adopted the City of Milford fiscal budget for 24-25, and the Aldermen upheld that Board of Finance reduction. The Board of Education must now make reductions in the amount of that reduction so that we can meet the lump sum appropriation. So this evening, we've prepared in your package, you'll find some proposed reductions for the 24-25 budget. In many of these, I just want to call out before we begin, in many of these, you'll notice the word defer or something along similar language of the word defer. And what that represents is that these items are items that will need to be completed or engaged in at some point. But as of right now, this is something that we believe will be pushed into possibly the next year's budget. It's in consideration for next year's budget. So line by line, like Dr. Kataya mentioned on page 6 here, we're going to go through a quick summary of each one of these items, and then we'll open it up for questions that you may have for every one of these. So in account 1111, which is to reduce 1.0 elementary FTE, so this is based on our current analysis and of the enrollment that we have, and that we are able to reduce this line item and still be able to meet the Board of Ed guidelines for class size. As you may be aware, enrollment changes over the summer, so this is something that we look to adjust as the summer enrollment comes in. So that's something that we have some flexibility on, where we can now take a look at what the current enrollment is and make sure that we're meeting those Board of Ed guidelines. And account 1117, that's to reduce a 1.0 in the Connecticut Teacher Residency Program. And the amount for that is $30,000. I apologize, the one before the elementary teacher was $65,000. Back to the teacher residency program, $30,000. So due to the limited pool candidates that we had for this, we were able to secure only one of the two positions for this teachers in residency. In account 3235, reduce counseling support services. This is the Bridges program. So this is something that we were able to take a look and do an analysis on our current Medicaid spending. So even though this is a reduction in the sense of on our general funds, this is a program that we still are going to engage in for next year. But through some careful analysis, we were able to move the cost of this program onto Medicaid funds. Medicaid funds are something that is more of a very fluid account, and we don't like to account for it for FTEs or for programs like that, because the amount of money that's actually in that program varies school year to school year based upon student need. In the accounts 4304 and 4305, our buildings and grounds projects, we're making a reduction of $520,000 and $260,135 respectively. And that's in light of our current long-range facilities condition study. So we're proposing a strategic pause on these two accounts, and we're going to take a proactive approach to leverage the results of that study. And some of the items that are in those two accounts that we're reducing are some abatement, some bathroom tile repairs, classroom painting, brush and tree work, and also paving. The next account 6100 for foreign high school band uniforms, reducing in the amount of $72,000. So this is something that, as discussed through the budget process, foreign high school is in need of new band uniforms, but this is something that will be deferred to a future budget cycle. In account 7310, equipment, and that's maintenance equipment and musical instruments, the proposed reduction is $53,014. There are several items in this equipment account that are going to be deferred until next year, and it highlights some of those in the impact area. And some of these items are bass, cello, leaf blower, floor scrubbers, and cordless power tools. In the final account there, the 7340, furniture and fixtures, the proposed reduction is $185,280. And this is in response to us in the process of right now developing a multi-year plan to replace furniture to best meet the needs of students. So at this time, we're going to defer this to a future budget cycle. So all of these proposed amounts here total up to that reduction of $1,335,429, which is equivalent to the proposed reduction approved by the Board of Aldermen. At this time, we're happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. So just for full transparency, I had had several board members express to me that their concern over the reduction of the $150,000 for the bridges piece. So I just wanted two clarifications. This reduction was intended to be our portion of the funding, where the bridges grant was to cover the three schools that they opted to engage with, Law, the Academy, and West Shore. And then we were hoping to engage additional bridges clinicians to cover Foreign, East Shore, and West, and Harborside, and that would have been our cost for that piece.
That is correct.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you feel that you can shift the cost, we can still uphold our
Provide
end
the service.
of what we want to do, and we could shift the cost from the general fund to Medicaid funds for the
Exactly.
coming year.
For 1 year only.
For 1 year
Right.
only, and that's why on paper here, it looks like a reduction to the general funds, which it is, but we were able to shift that to.
Okay. Board members, yes.
Just
Ms.
following up
Muller.
on that, which is the Medicaid account fund line? That feels like new language.
It's like a grant, so it's not in our budget at all.
So it's not, okay.
So Ms. Stewart can just give a little brief
Sure.
overview of what that looks like and how it,
Okay, and when you're in the overview, also a follow-up question, you said it varies based on student need from year to year. So is that something projective or is that something retrospective to the year prior where that comes in?
So Medicaid funds, it's when a student receives, say, OT, PT, speech, counseling, so parents can give consent for the district to, like, get funds back for the services that they are provided during the school year. So that's where the funds can ebb and flow each year, depending if a parent gives consent and then how much services the student gets per year.
So how are you knowing that we'll have money to cover this next
So
year?
based on what I know now, we will have enough going forward to cover it for 1 year, but we won't know the exact amount until the end of the fiscal year.
so you don't have to accrue those funds within the year that you're expending them. So the funds become finalized, so we're finalizing those numbers as to what they'll look like for this year, and those numbers carry over into the next year.
Oh, okay, so it's money that we will have at
It's
the
a
end of this
guarantee.
year?
Correct.
Yeah. We know that we'll have it.
And if it's intended to be for services that were provided in the previous year, does it normally go towards backfilling and now we're not going to be backfilling a cost that we already spent?
No, it's a reimbursement. It's not
Right,
to
but if we're
cover
not using it to
services.
reimburse ourselves for the costs of the services, we're going to use it for something else now, then how are we getting reimbursed for the? Reimbursement to me means you spent money on services for these kids, and then their parents said it's okay to get reimbursed from the state for them, for those services that
It's
you
our
already
own staff
provide.
is providing the services, so it's within our salary. I mean, we're paying for them as salary. So our OTPTs are providing the services that we can bill Medicaid for, correct?
Correct.
So.
But it's not to offset the general fund budget, because it's not predictable. So if we get reimbursed for speech language services provided by permission by parents, it's not intended to now offset the general fund.
Right.
It's in addition to.
Where does it what were we gonna do with that money otherwise?
We have intended costs of those.
So if a student needs specialized nursing, it can use for that. Sometimes we use it for supplies, sometimes for an outside contractor who might need to do an evaluation such as an assistive technology.
Okay, so it just kind of sits and is used throughout the following year? Like you're
It's carried, you can carry it over year to year.
Right,
doesn't
year to
carry
year
over.
in a fund, and then it sits there, and that fund can be used for these variety of things that you just outlined. It seems odd to me that there's a fund where we get known reimbursements each year, and now all of a sudden, we're gonna take $150,000 from that fund, and it wouldn't have an impact on anything.
Well, it's a fund that is fluid, so you don't know what's gonna be in it from year to year.
Right.
And it's a fund that is supposed to be there to provide services that may be unpredictable. So if a child moves in and we need a nurse, additional nursing services, which have happened in the past. We either have to find a way to budget for it in the general fund, or we have access to this Medicaid account that is built that way. It's supposed to be responsive to student needs in your system.
What will be remaining in that fund once we take out this 150?
We are finalizing the
No,
number.
since you have an idea of what's coming, you know at least enough is coming to cover the 150.
Yeah.
So then we just hope we don't need more than that in this upcoming year, and if so, you have to pull it from general funds.
Just like anything else. Just like if there are more kids that move in the elementary and we need additional FTEs and we don't have it in the general fund side, then we find a way to fund it by putting a pause on something else. That's the responsiveness of the organization. If unexpected costs come, then that's how we respond to it. We put pause on other things and pay for what we have to. We have and we're on a budget freeze right now because of unexpected special ed costs. As you've reviewed already and will in a couple weeks, on how we've had to put a pause on some spending so that we can address some unexpected costs in the area of tuition and transportation.
Can you still commit to pursuing a grant opportunity for?
We can, yeah.
Yes. Other questions on this or anything else? Yes, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, so I guess not necessarily now, but would love to understand where in the packet we can find the Medicaid.
It's not in there, because it's not part of our budget. It's a separate account.
That's very confusing to me. In that, I understand how Medicaid works and reimbursement rates, and I'm just curious, it is somewhat off-putting that there are reimbursements accounts with 6 figures that didn't. Obviously, I'm learning a lot, but I'm just trying to get my bearings, because learning there's accounts with hundreds of thousands of dollars in them that weren't in our budget packet is something I'm
That are available to be touched.
getting acquainted with. And so then the question on Medicaid is, and not expecting it now, but I guess now that open the questions for wrapping my head around this more is, are all students eligible for Medicaid reimbursement for services that they receive, or is it only only students who are currently eligible for Husky and Medicaid? And
Only students with special education, it doesn't matter what insurance they have, because it doesn't go through insurance. It doesn't go through their parents' insurance.
okay.
So it does not
special
matter
education
what-
students access Medicaid regardless of their primary insurance?
Correct.
Okay. And so then, I guess the other question is, I'd be curious to know if, given the challenge with special education funding and the fact that with parental consent, we can seek reimbursement for some services provided, what is our current utilization rate or success rate in getting those parents to say yes to submit for reimbursement? Right.
We do. They just sign, we have to do the submitting of
Right,
ours.
sorry,
Consent.
but yeah, getting the consent, right? So if we have real round numbers, because that's the easiest way for me to think about this. Like, so if there are 1,000 kids who are special education kids who are Medicaid reimbursement eligible, what percentage of those parents have given us permission to seek Medicaid reimbursement? Because if it's 20%, that seems enlightening, or if it's 80%, then we're doing a good job, and just want to calibrate my understanding of how successful we are in going after additional funding reimbursements that we're eligible to do. So not a today thing, but that's just a.
But I don't know that I would characterize our percentage of getting parents to agree to reimbursement as a success rate. That I wouldn't want us to be a system that's putting pressure on parents to do that. So I think communicating that that's available and the benefits of, but I'd have to think through a little bit how we'd come across on that.
Yeah, and I guess I'm looking at it as if we are currently trying to solve for a problem that we are in a spending freeze because of increased special education costs, and one of the possible revenue streams is Medicaid reimbursement rates, but a barrier to accessing that reimbursement is having a parent consent to allow us to seek that reimbursement. want to make sure we're doing our best to educate the parents about the value, both for their child and the system, of them saying yes to allow us to submit
But
for
it's not,
reimbursement.
that's not the student that is targeted for Medicaid reimbursement. The reason why our budget is overspent in tuition and transportation are for those students mostly who we're placing out of system.
Mhm.
These are not the students, right?
No.
Am I right about that?
You are correct.
These are the students that are in our system receiving, let's say, speech.
Right.
So our budget line in tuition and transportation isn't an apple and orange comparison here.
Right, but if there are special education students who are eligible for Medicaid reimbursement, and that can go into a fund, that fund can be utilized for purposes within our district, I would just like to make sure that we're accessing all the dollars we're legally able to access and making sure we're communicating effectively to parents to ensure that we have, given that we're here talking about having to cut $1.1 million from our budget, that we're not leaving any money on the table when it comes to reimbursement.
So how do we notify parents? We're making an assumption that we're not communicating well with parents. How do we notify
I
them?
don't think the assumption was part of the question. I think the question was, if that is a fund that is available to fill in gaps in certain places in this budget, how are we making sure that that fund is robust as possible?
So when a student qualifies for special education for the first time, they are given the document, and that's when the parents have a choice. And once they sign that one time, the services can continue.
Okay.
Yeah. Just, yeah, and again, don't expect it now, but just curious at a later
So
date.
every child's parent is given that form.
Right.
Everyone, right?
Everyone, and they
And is
have
that-
the choice to sign or not.
Right, and I guess having seen many government forms and knowing how they can look, they're not always written in plain English. And so curious if it is just the DSS form, the Medicare reimbursement form, or if we have kind of an MPS cover letter, like explaining why they're, as appropriately as possible, encouraging them to let us seek reimbursement. So, thank you.
Ms. Doyle?
Can I call for a recess?
Sure. We're just going to take 10 minutes and recess. Page 28. Oh, it might not be 10. That's what you say. Hi, just to clarify, your thinking is that we would have available in the Medicaid reimbursement account the $150,000 to fund these counselors for the next school year.
Based on our current estimates,
Okay.
yes.
And you will continue to pursue grant opportunities?
We will.
All right, and.
We'll go back to Bridges, because just for clarification, the grant that we have the benefit of is Bridges applied for,
Correct.
Attain, they did all of that. They asked if we wanted to be a partner along with them in that. So we'll go back to Bridges and see if there are other opportunities. We're not normally a district that qualifies for many grants because of our demographics, but we will go back and see if there's any way to extend that, there are other opportunities and such not.
And your sense is that these are clinicians that we would, it would behoove us to continue with the services going forward for a number of years. It's not a one-year need. It's a need that you sense will be with us for a while.
Yeah, I know it was a long time ago, but back in January, we talked about the early success of the clinicians in our schools already, the growing mental health needs of our young people. It may warrant a bigger conversation next year of a reassessment of what are the mental health needs of our young people, and where is our line with that? Where do we provide the service, and where does the community pick up the service, right? So it really should be in partnership with the city of Milford. So we probably have some conversations to have with our city officials around that. But we see the need in our schools. We have current need. If this isn't an option of us using other funding that is available to us, then we're deferring it a year.
Okay, and I do know that, I mean, I know of many people that are having a hard time finding private clinicians to service their children. They feel their kids need. So I think that's still a growing problem in general throughout the state, if not farther. Okay.
And as a follow-up to the questions we found on our website, the 3 pages that we give every parent. So it's the application or the consent form, and then a Q&A. So that is what is shared with each family that may have a student that has qualifying services for reimbursement.
So at that time, does somebody sit down with them and walk them through the forms? Or are they just handed the forms and say, ask them to fill,
The staff can review the forms with the parents.
Is it done proactively though, or only if the parent says, I need help with this?
No, they will do it at the meeting.
It's part of the PPT process, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And we even have, part of a secretary's role is to process these reimbursement forms. So that's not the last step, it's actually only the first step. Then we
Right.
have service providers that must submit logs of service by date, by hours, gets sent to the PPS office, and then that gets logged into the portal. So there are multiple steps here.
All right. Do board members have other questions on this line or any of the other lines on the sheet? Any of the other 8 accounts that we have recommendations from?
Just a comment.
Yes.
I think it makes a lot of sense on the buildings and grounds, especially in light of now that the condition study, so I do agree with that. And then it is reassuring then now to see that 150 will be available for Warren, East Shore, and Harborside. I'm very pleased to see that. That's it.
Thank you. I think as you bring up buildings and grounds, though, I do want to say that it's really critical, I think, that buildings and grounds is the first thing that always goes. I mean, I've been 12 years on the board now, and every time we have to look for reductions, that's the first thing we look at, and it has an effect. I mean, it's not a benign reduction at all, and I'm comfortable doing it only because of the fact that we are doing the facility study, and which will allow us to be a little bit more intentional about the work that we put into our buildings going forward. But I just want to be really vocal about the fact that, this is 500,000 plus from buildings and almost, 260,000 from grounds projects. That is it's a big number, and that's a lot of work that we would be doing in our buildings. I know Mr. Bradbury's always busy, always has things to do, but when we defer the maintenance of our buildings, that's basically what this is, that has long-lasting effects, and I think that just needs to be said. And all of these reductions, I mean, I'm appreciative that the reductions are to areas that will not have a profound impact on children specifically, but these are all reductions that do have impact in some manner. And whether it's, long-term instructional or, even band uniforms, we'll stitch the holes for another year. But, these are things that do have effects, and I'm disappointed that we have to make these reductions, but that's philosophical. Yes, Ms. Mahler.
Still on the buildings and grounds projects, in the budget, the totals and the aggregate amounts that we had for those lines were based on very specific projects at different locations.
Yes.
Are the reductions to specific projects, or are they, a little bit out of here, cut one less tree limb, a little bit out over here, something like that? And if so, what are the specific projects that are being cut?
Sure. I'm glad you asked. I have a list here for you.
I had a hunch you might.
To answer your question, it's a combination of both.
Okay.
So some projects, as I'm sure you can imagine, are like what we would call like a phased project, where it has multiple parts. So for example, one specific example on there. Thank you. So if you take a look at A21 in your budget binder, you're going to have a list of all the buildings and grounds projects. So I emulated this list very similarly structured to what your budget binder looks like. And in this actual list here, you'll see very specifically line for line what it says in that one, but without the projects that are going to be moving forward, it has a 0 in that line item instead of the other one. These building projects match up very specifically to the amount that we've reduced. But there's an example, like if you take a look at on the grounds project, the CAP 10 one, the replace roof drainage leaders, that one there is a different amount than what was originally listed in the budget book. And the reason for that is instead of, there's different drainage systems throughout the whole roof. So what Mr. Bradbury and his team would do would be targeting the areas where more water or different kinds of drainage is falling into one specific place and really target that area of it rather than completing a whole cycle of the entire roof, if that makes sense. So like a phased-in approach to the areas that are the highest need because the water might be dripping in one area causing ice during the winter time. So that's the kind of area that he would approach with that. But to answer your question, yes, it would be a combination.
So those in here that are zeroed out are the ones that are no longer?
Those are the ones that are deferred.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're not going to do abatement in one wing of CAF Pen anymore because of this budget reduction?
That is correct.
Right, so we're not going to be replacing the bathroom floors at Orange Ave. We're not going to be doing abatement in an area of Live Oaks. All of this because of this budget reduction.
Yes, and I want to be careful with the word not going to do. I want to use the
This
word
year.
deferred.
This
Yes,
year.
deferred at
Because it
this
still
time.
needs to be done.
We will be
Still
deferring
need
it
to get
until
done.
later. We will not be doing it in the upcoming school year in this budget.
Exactly, yes.
Absolutely, so good luck. Okay.
And I appreciate that you guys have the best information to be able to advise as to which projects would get deferred to a later time. Ms. Petrosky?
I just wanted to say that once again, it is clear the deep dive that you have done and the very careful work that you've done in coming up with what these reductions should be. And I know it's been, I'm sure it's been a painful process. It certainly has been. I have found it painful that it had to happen because I do know, deferring at some point you pay the piper, right? I myself have had this issue with my own home. I've deferred, I'll do it next year, I'll do it next year, and suddenly it's a much bigger project than it was originally. So I do understand that there are some risks to deferring as well. So I appreciate the hard work that you guys did on picking and choosing. Thank you.
Any other questions or conversation? Mr. Smith?
Yeah, just want to say thank you for especially the clear description and the line items of the buildings and grounds, those costs. It really helps paint a picture of some of the cost that we're grappling with, and I don't think anyone here is excited to be having this discussion in this meeting. And I think probably all of us to some degrees have different levels of frustration with having to find cuts in a budget that we spent many, many hours and many days constructing, that we thought had a pretty good job of laying out the vision that we look forward to and want our students and our community to have. And so going through the list, and I was one of those board members that Joe and Glenn had mentioned, that really the counseling reduction really stood out to me, and I'm really appreciative of figuring out a way to put that back in there. Because one of the things, and not saying it here for the first time, but I'm realizing more and more that some folks might not hear it, so might not have heard before, but one of the things that one of the parts of my experience is between junior and senior year of college, I got diagnosed with cancer. And so for the subsequent 16 years, I've had different interactions, both personally and with peers in the cancer community and not, that underscores the importance of mental health counseling. And so making sure we're providing those services to our students is one of the things that I feel very passionate and strongly about. So I'm very happy that we were able to find that, because I do think that it would be a detriment to our students, and I wouldn't want to have some students in our community being able to access those services without others, because as painful as it is to see these cuts to buildings and grounds projects, and we all know that the cost of deferring maintenance and how you might save money delaying your oil change, but then eventually your engine block's going to break and you have to buy a new expensive car. It is certainly easier to build back facilities than it is to build back people who are struggling. So I really appreciate finding those dollars, and just thank you.
And Mr. Smith, if we could find more ways to share that with our greater community, your sentiment, because as you know, even this year, we continue to bump up against elected officials who do not understand the importance of the role of these clinical therapists as well as our school counselors. We've been beating the drum for 3 years in a row since adding the counselors, and the sentiment has been resentment that we've added to the foundation of FTEs instead of gratitude that we're supporting our kids' mental health. So I'm willing to engage in creative ways on how we can better communicate that and support the need for just the whole mental health suite of systems for our kids.
And I think I was just gonna thank you for differentiating between the certified school counselors and a clinician counselor, because I think what we're talking about here are the clinicians. These are clinical therapists, correct?
Yep.
And maybe that's what we need to start calling them, clinical therapists versus counselors, because there's a difference between the two. A big difference that I agree with you. It's been kind of frustrating because I have verbalized that many, many times, and yet there's still that misunderstanding. But it is a suite of services, and I think, it's, but, the certified school counselor has that academic piece as well, right?
It's for all, right?
Right.
Where clinical is very much more
Correct.
targeted.
And I think, but I agree that we need to perhaps find some more descriptive terminology that will differentiate the two, because I think there is still that misunderstanding, so.
And just a quick follow-up, I do really want to commend and appreciate and recognize how much of a value add I think it is to be partnering with Bridges, our local mental health agency that I know I've seen both Democrats and Republicans participating in their annual Folks on Spokes fundraiser bike ride, and it is another great resource in our community. So bringing that into our schools, I really like being able to partner and have those partnerships. Thank you.
So, listening to all of this and going through and seeing what's not being done and what's being changed and what's having to move and the conversation, there's such a conflict in a way between what we're looking at and what we're cutting and what we're doing right now here in front of us and the reasons that we're having to do it, and the long-term careful planning and vision that for year over year over year has gone into building a school system that does all of these things. A school system that does support our kids, that does take care of our facilities and provide the locations and the physical infrastructure that are necessary to support the programming that we all believe is necessary to support our kids in their future. And then to have layered onto it the types of services that we're talking about through the Bridges Grant and through the counselors and through the clinical therapists and the mental health layer that has gone on to that to make sure that they are not just succeeding academically, but they are succeeding as people. That when they graduate, they are as healthy as they can be, top to bottom, left to right, inside out. And that all of that is a part of our responsibility, and that we have all believed in that vision and been building towards that vision as a board and as a district and as a community for so many years to get us to this point that I am angry. I am angry. And damn it, I cry when I'm angry, but I'm gonna try not to. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I am so mad that we find ourselves in this position. And we find ourselves in this position not because Milford doesn't support its schools, not because the Board of Ed disagrees with the district or there's some debate over what we're gonna do. We are in this position because there are people who believe that for whatever reason, this is just not important to them. We are here because there is a group of individuals that were elected on a platform of fully funding our schools and have the glossy flyers and the campaign signs plastering this city all fall that people believed and supported. And they said, we will work with the superintendent to fully fund our schools and we will support education, fully funding, over and over and over. And when the time came to do that, when the money was sitting on the table and could be used for this, and it wasn't gonna take it from anywhere else, it wasn't gonna result in cuts to anything that anyone else cared about, they said, you know what, this is a choice, we choose no. And the leader of that group just sat there and let it happen. And the leader of that group and every single individual who supports the folks who made that hypocritical decision and that choice, and I'm sorry, I am angry tonight, I'm shaking, because I am so mad that we find ourselves again in this position where what this community has believed in and supported throughout year after year after year, and this board and this district has put together as the vision for what is right for our kids, is yet again being thrown to the wind because somebody didn't feel like it that day, because someone made a choice of, there was nothing to choose between. There was no A or B. There was simply to fund or not to fund, and the choice was made not to fund. Repeatedly, there were opportunities to fund. There were opportunities to fully fund and to partially fully fund, and every single opportunity, the decision was made that, you know what, that vision isn't important. That vision isn't right. We don't agree with that future for our kids and our community, and I am so mad that it has put us in a position now to have to go through and say things like, well, I guess we'll defer the abatement at Cath Penn in that classroom that we were looking at, in those 4 classrooms. Sorry, guys. It's just a complete disconnect. And it is so frustrating that we are in this position. And I know I am not the only one in this community that is angry, but I am able to sit here right now and talk about that anger as long as I would like, and I promise I'm almost done. But this is important, and this matters, and I believe that we are doing the absolute best we can and have put forward a very good plan and a very good vision that we will continue building on next year. This will come back and this will still happen, this will still be important, and this will not change where we are going. But right now, being in this position is a frustrating place to be in. And I am not the only one frustrated. There are frustrated parents all over this town right now. And I wish that there were things that we could do more quickly to find ourselves not in this position next year. And perhaps there are, and perhaps there are not. But right now, tonight, this is the best version of what we are able to do with what we have been given and what has been forced upon us by a group of people who chose not to support the future of our kids that we all agree is right. And I am frustrated about that. So I will vote on this and I will support this and I will do the work that we were elected to do. And I wish there were others who would do the same.
Thank you. Other comments on the suggested reductions? We still have to make a motion and vote, so there'll be discussion there as well. Any other comments before we vote there? Suggestions? Everybody good? Okay. All right, Ms. Petrosky, do you have a motion, please?
Move that the Milford Board of Education adopts the 2024-2025 budget in the amount of $109,950,341 with the following line item adjustments as recommended by the administration. Account 1111, teachers, reduced by $65,000. Account 1117, substitute teachers, reduced by $30,000. Account 3235, other PPS, reduced by $150,000. Account 4304, building projects, reduced by $520,000. Account 4305, grounds projects, reduced by $260,135. Account 6100, non-instructional supplies, reduced by $72,000. Account 7310, equipment, reduced by $53,014. Account 7340, furniture and fixtures, reduced by $185,280.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Second by Mr. Fermender. Okay, we did have some of our discussion already. Do we have any further points of discussion from board members? Ms. Doyle.
Thank you. I support these cuts as best as they are, as Ms. Mahler said, that they're the best of what the worst we could have done. And I'm not going to say too much. One of the things I did before I came to this meeting is I went to the Stockton Cheshire at the softball game, as softball was against law in their last game, like win or die, and got to see that last moment where they tied the score, and I'm like, I need to leave right now in order to be here at this meeting on time. And it was 4:30, I got there at 5:20 on a Monday afternoon, and there are 50 parents from law that made the 40-minute drive to go to Cheshire. And that's part of community that we have, and we've delivered from that. And that's reflected in this budget over and over and over again. It's our, as we talk about, FTEs, our programming, it's people. It's people showing up to the sporting events, to the musical events, to the plays, to all of these things. And it's extraordinarily frustrating to have a budget cut from individuals who I don't think understand what is happening in the schools, whether it's school counselors or clinicians or anything. At the end of the day is there's a reason we have administrators who do that, because they're the experts. We have to do what we think will move the district forward in a progressive manner. And I don't mean progressive in any political sense. I mean, are we preparing our students to be successful in the future? And that success is defined by what their success is in the future. So we'll support this and we'll continue to fight for each time. And we'll make sure that we plan for accordingly for what we know might be the future again. So, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. We have a budget.
So moment of privilege, Ms. Glennon?
Yes.
So I just want to thank each board member for all of your words since January of support. We actually, as a team, enjoy the engagement of the question and answer and the push and pull and the way you make us think around our priorities and how they align to our vision and our mission and the goals of the board. That's part of the work. us working on that together and fleshing it out. And Ms. Doyle, thank you for mentioning that our plans still continue. If you read carefully every year, the reporter asks me after a cut, what does this mean for you, Dr. Kataya? It means we're going to still continue to dream big for kids. It's not going to prevent us from doing that and fulfilling the goals of this board. So thank you for supporting the vision and continuing to support us through tonight's budget vote. And we'll be back next year with more fun requests for our kiddos and staff members. So we're going to go on to more mundane items, and that is the revisions to board policy. Approval being asked. Mr. Autieri will take the first three, and Mr. Brenner will take the last one.
So board members, we'll start with policy number 5112.3, dropouts. Again, just a word of note that any of the insertions requested from last time are reflected in blue. So with 5112.3, we have added in the third paragraph Milford Public Schools. And that is the only change for that particular policy.
Thank you. The motion is.
Make a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves Board Policy 5112.3, dropouts, as presented by the administration.
Your second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fermender. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Next policy is 6154, which is homework. And again, this is going down to the third paragraph, removing the word while and adding the district believes.
In looking at this, I saw there's still some, like, this particular paragraph is still missing some words, I think. So I typed something up. I'll leave it with Ms. Griffin. It's more housekeeping, but the district believes it is important that students allot appropriate time for physical activities and social recreation. I'd suggest a period there, break that up. And then strike and therefore and replace that with students. Students are encouraged to manage their time in a way that homework can be completed and submitted in a timely manner, comma. And then strike, students are encouraged to find. And then, so it would be, are encouraged to manage their time in a way that homework can be completed and submitted in a timely manner, with, add the word with, a balance that allows for engagement in academic and non-academic activities, as both can benefit their overall health and development. There was just, in some ways it did make sense, the way it was typed. Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay, anything else on this one?
Thank you. We do have your edits.
Okay.
Make a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves Board Policy 6154, homework, as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Policy 6161.3, which is comparability of services. Going down to the third paragraph, the board had requested clarification on ESSA, so we did add in Every Student Succeeds Act. Also, going into the fourth paragraph, when we talk about the comparability of services, we wanted to reflect that funding comes from a variety of sources, including federal, state, and local funds. And then removing using federal, state, and local funds, and just starting that first clause there with the provide.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, motion.
Make a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves Board Policy 6161.3, comparability of services, as presented by the administration.
Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Permender. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I'll turn over to Mr. Brendan.
And for the final policy for review this evening, policy 7230.2, indoor air quality, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, HVAC. Under item number 1, we struck the language provide for a uniform review and added in the language perform an internal review. Under number 3, we struck Department of Administrative Services as that was already listed out in the previous section and just left the DAS in there. Under item number 6, we struck the language local or regional and of education shall provide for A, and we added in districts, or directs the district to conduct A, which would make this now read, the board directs the district to conduct A. And then under the last section there, indoor air quality in new or renovated facilities, under we added a number 4 under the suggestion of the board, and added it as and including air conditioning systems consistent with applicable DAS and CSDE guidelines on HVAC systems and air quality/temperature.
So I have a question. Refresh my memory from last month. This policy reflects the legislation that we have to do a review. We have to inspect all of our systems every year.
Yes.
So, but didn't the law just get modified a little bit?
The law did just get modified a little bit.
So this will change, this will
change
once, I
this,
know it
yeah.
doesn't go into effect until July
Yeah,
1st.
the number 6 one. So if you take a look, number 6, yeah, it's number 6. Yeah, 5 years. So they're gonna spread that one out to be 20% per year.
Right, okay.
But the one that's every single year is still in existence.
Right, it's the 5-year one that I was thinking of.
Yes.
Okay, so at some point, will we need to modify this?
Usually
Yes.
council will send
Right,
updates to
okay,
policy.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of timing when that was
Right,
approved and when
yeah.
this one is.
Okay,
Make a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves Board Policy 7230.2, Indoor Air Quality, HVAC, as presented by the administration.
second?
Second that.
Thank you, Mr. Fermender. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Ms. Glennon, if I may ask you for a sense, the next item under the superintendent's report is a lengthy one. It's gonna take us about an hour to go through this with your Q&A.
Okay.
I'm guessing that there may be some questions about this one.
Okay.
And we have a rather light, I'm sorry, I'm throwing this on you.
No, that's fine. No, we had thought about
But I
this.
didn't know it was gonna be at 9:15.
Yes.
Watching out for all of us.
Anybody opposed to postponing the capital improvement plan discussion until our committee of the whole meeting?
There's no urgency, because we don't go to the mayor with it until later.
Okay. All right, we can do that.
Unless you wanna be here till, because then we have 2 more items after that.
I got here late, I owe you an hour.
So Ms. Mahler will stay.
Yes.
She'll take it for the rest of the meeting.
I'll send you my notes.
She's doing the pre-work on this one?
Don't worry, guys, I got this.
Okay, so we'll put that onto the committee of the whole meeting.
Yes, I think we'll be fresher.
Yep, I agree.
We have student reports recognizing CAVE students, board liaisons, and 1, 2, 3, 4, we think 4 policies will be ready for you for first
Okay.
read.
All right,
So
very good.
nothing heavier than that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Okay,
move
so
on.
we'll move on to the disbursement report, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Dr. Kaya, Ms. Glennon, members of the board. In your package, you will find a list of all the disbursements for the month of April over the amount of $1,500. At this time, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Did any board members have questions on any of the disbursements? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. I know so we have storage at Simon Lake, and so we pay for the utilities there at Simon Lake, and that's why we reimburse the city, or is that for usage?
Yes, so that's for reimbursement. We pay a portion of the electricity there.
So where are you looking? Can I ask, please, what
Sure.
page?
It's on 32.
And
It's
how far
about,
down?
3/4 of the way down.
4100, 4101, and 4102.
Okay, thank you. So, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, Mr. Brennan.
Yes, that is correct. Simon Lake Utilities, we pay for a portion of our usage at the building. The city also uses a part of the building as well, but we pay our portion of that.
Okay, and that's related to just electricity or water or?
All
All
of them.
utilities,
Yeah, so
and
the
that's-
city would bill us for the utilities for that.
And so that's June to February.
Yeah, so it's based on when the city would actually bill us, so then we would reimburse at that time.
Okay, so that is approximately $750 a month. In that.
Yeah, as I'm sure you can imagine, we're not using a ton of
You're trying to
utilities
not
at
make
that
the
school.
pipes
We're just using it for storage, correct? Some storage? Small
Partial
amount of-
storage, yes,
A
small
small
amount
amount
of
of storage.
And we are not the, we only use approximately
Less than a third.
less than a third of
Yeah.
the actual
Whatever that
space there.
fraction is, less than a third.
Less than a third.
I will say, not to go back to the capital improvement plan, but it didn't escape notice that the Eels Hill Complex has fallen off of the plan totally. So I don't know if that was an oversight, or
No.
but we'll talk about that next month.
Yes, and just to kind of go along with that, I think that it's an intentional pause right now with the results of our long-range
Okay.
facility study. So that was something that was on my mind as well, but yes.
That's
it's fine.
storage as well. I know we talk about storage every once in a while, it comes
Yes.
up. So, and we still have a couple of trailers, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Because that kind of was the trailers, and doing like a very quick calculation, we're at about $5,000 a month for trailers.
That is correct.
So $60,000 a year on just trailers since COVID. And that's decreased significantly since the beginning, right? Okay.
And we can't even access really.
Right, it's just kind of stuck in there and best we can to.
Yes.
Okay, so there's that, and then just for clarification, the Pullman and Conley Instructional Division, is that for on legal services?
Yes.
It was for a residency hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the disbursement report? Thank you. Move on to the next item.
Yes, it is
Talent management.
Talent Management and Development Report with Ms. Capazzo.
Thank you. In my monthly report, you have a listing of job postings, personnel recommendations, retirements, resignations, terminations, and stipend appointments. Nothing earth-shattering this month, except that we have had a lot of retirements, resignations, and terminations, as you can see. And we are up to 7 retirements, which is a little light for this time of year.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to keep an eye on that.
Do you know the breakdown of the levels?
I do, actually, I did make a note of that. 4 high school, 1 middle school, 2 elementary.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you clarify something for me? The stipends for, I'm looking to see what's, I'm looking through this long list of, the stipends for clubs, like at, for instance, the drama club, for instance, at the high school, are they, is something like that posted? Like, do we do the hiring, or would the principal do the hiring for that?
The principals do the hiring, we post them typically around now, but there's some hesitation to have people commit because there's still the
Right,
personnel
sure.
moves that need to be done, so
Yeah.
in September, they'll give us a finalized list,
Uh-huh.
clubs and activities.
And are there?
They start some in the beginning of the year, some
Are
in
there
October.
bargaining unit stipulations within, how those are posted? Like, do they have to be posted annually, or do they have to go first to a employee?
We post all of our stipends annually, so in this particular case, we will post them, but then have them send an email to the principal. And we, of course, would try to give preference to MEA staff, because it's part of our teacher
Right.
contract. But if we can't find anyone, of course, we consider people from the outside.
And they're posted annually regardless of whether the person that's currently in them might want to remain, or do you
For
only-
activities, we do.
Yeah.
For, I'm trying to think about where and when we wouldn't. For 90% of them, we would post. For something like, the athletic director gets a stipend, but we don't post
Right,
that stipend
yeah.
every year because it goes with the person.
Right, correct.
But for most other stipends, we do.
All right, thank you.
Like department heads, things of that nature.
Any questions on the talent, talent management and development report?
We're getting there.
All right, seeing none.
Thank you.
Completes your report, Dr. Kataja.
I, for some reason, thought you were gonna make a motion, and I just got caught up in the moment. No, yes, we're all set, thank you.
But we are going to make a motion now. Consent
Yes.
agenda, please, Ms.
Make a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves consent agenda items, consideration of minutes, April 8th, 2024 business meeting, and the April 22nd, 2024 committee of the whole meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fermender. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Board comment. Anybody have board comment?
I have a board comment.
Yes.
I've been holding this board comment so excitedly for either 3 or 4 weeks, I cannot remember. But I had don't read over my shoulder, my handwriting's terrible. Had the wonderful privilege to go speak with Brownie Troop, number 30328, which is much higher than the Brownie Troop numbers many, many years ago when I was a Brownie. So apparently we just keep adding them. But this is a group of wonderful second grade girls who come from 7 of the 8 elementary schools here in the district. And they were doing I'm gonna call it a unit, because
Badge.
here,
It's a badge.
they were working towards their democracy badge. And so they were learning all about local government, state government, federal government, and had the opportunity to, the wonderful honor to be invited to talk to them about what it's like to be here on the Board of Education. So I only gave them the good stuff and answered probably, I don't know, 30,328 questions for every single member of their group. But one of the important things that they were learning at these wonderful girls was that their voices matter. Even though they are second graders, which is little bitty, they have some big old voices and they matter and we care about what they think and it carries. So I asked them what their favorite things were about school. And they had about a bazillion of them that they just loved. Everything from science to music to lunch to recess to math and everything. But then I also asked them, what would you change to make your school even better than it already is? And I told them that I would bring their list and I would read it to the Board of Education and I would read it to the district leadership so that everybody was very aware of where we start our budget process for next year. So we just finished one and now we're ready for the other one. So they believe that the rock wall in the playground should be replaced by a zip line. They believe that we should have more video games incorporated into our curriculum. I'm ad-libbing a little bit here just so it fits into our budget conversation. They think we should most definitely have a district-wide bring your pet to school day, even if that pet is not furry and is a snake. They believe that we should celebrate a lot more in every classroom. We should have more birthday parties and more celebrations. There should be more nap time extended well throughout. Mind you, they'd only gotten to second grade, so I told them to just wait. We'd circle back on that one. There should be also more dance parties, particularly on Fridays. Told them to come to my house. We do that already. They think that there should definitely be more field trips. That's one of their favorite parts, so file that away. There should be more slides added to the playgrounds. The playgrounds with 3 slides are far superior. One older brother chimed in at one point and recommended that start time be shifted to 10 o'clock. Not entirely sure which grade he was falling in there. Could have been a middle school, could have been an elementary school, but either way, file that away. And that we should play really good music in the cafeterias and everyone should get to bring their stuffed animals with them every day to share with their friends. So thank you very much to all the girls from Troop 30328 and their wonderful sponsors and parents. So I promised them to share their voices. So you have now heard what the next generation envisions for our district. So dare you to vote against that.
Should we model that behavior here at the board meeting sometime? Dance party board agenda, bring your stuffed animal, pets, swim
I will bring
night.
my favorite pet next time.
I say naps are hardly underrated.
So that was it, thank you.
Any other board comment, Ms. Reed?
Not a regular attendee at the Alderman meeting, but I did go to this last voting one. And I did, although it was frustrating, I did appreciate the efforts made by the alders that were in support of the budget to find ways to, just to find ways to make it happen. The way that Alder Federico went through all those numbers, found possibilities, and Marin and Healy had the options out there, and also Archeo. I just was impressed by the work that they did on behalf of the district. So, and then also seeing the regular faces of the families and the groups that come in to support was also, it was just very good to see and to be there with the hopes that it would have went another way.
Thank you, Ms. Irby. Other board comment? I should also add, I forgot to ask for liaison reports during my chair's report, if anybody has a liaison report. Again,
I do.
liaison, Ms. Doyle.
Pumpkin Delight, yes, that's a school, sorry, is moving along. It'll be ready for the school year. We're gonna leave it there.
I did attend the PTA council meeting this month, and they have elected their new board for next year, and they are ramping up for the next budget fight, so. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. And if there is no objections to adjourning at 9:29, we are adjourned. Thank you, board members. We'll see you next Tuesday.